Stress is already deciding for you. Not tomorrow. Not someday. Right now. Every time pressure shows up and your body tightens. Every time your thoughts race. Every time you speak too fast, explain too much, or react without thinking. That's not personality. That's not bad luck. That's your nervous system running your life. And here's the truth most people never confront. You are not losing because you lack intelligence. You are not stuck because you lack opportunity. You are not behind because you lack talent. You are losing because stress is making your decisions. When pressure hits, most people don't choose. They panic. And whatever you default to under stress becomes your destiny. That's the key. This audiobook exists for one reason: to take decision-making power out of stress and put it back where it belongs, with you. Because stress does not care about your goals. It does not care about your potential. It does not care about your intentions. Stress only cares about habits. And whatever habit shows up under pressure will decide your career, your relationships, and your future. You have a choice. You can let stress rush you. You can let stress shrink you. You can let stress turn you reactive, emotional, and predictable. Or you can train yourself to stay calm, while others lose control. Because calm people don't beg. They don't chase. They don't explain themselves under pressure. They pause. They choose. They respond. Reaction is weakness. Response is power. This audiobook is not here to comfort you. It's here to condition you. Because if you don't train calm deliberately, stress will train you violently. And the world will not wait for you to catch up. Welcome to the channel. If you're new here, we're glad you're with us. This space is built for people who want control, clarity, and discipline under pressure. If our work helps you, your support with a like tells us to keep going and to create more content like this for you. Now, let's begin. Chapter 1: Stress is stealing your authority. Stress is not just uncomfortable. Stress is expensive. Every time pressure hits and you rush your words, every time your voice tightens, every time you explain yourself instead of standing still, you lose authority. Not dramatically. Not all at once. But quietly. Piece by piece. That's the key. Authority is not taken from you. You give it away under stress. What authority really is, and what it isn't. Authority is not your title. It's not your position. It's not your experience. Authority is how people feel around you when pressure is present. Do they feel steadiness? Or do they feel tension? Do they feel clarity? Or do they feel urgency and chaos? Stress answers that question for them. And most people fail it without realizing. When stress decides, authority disappears. Say it clearly. When stress decides, authority disappears. Every rushed decision tells people he's not in control. Every emotional reaction says she's being driven, not driving. Every defensive explanation signals I'm unsure. And here's the part people hate to admit. You can be right and still lose authority. Because authority is not about correctness. It's about composure. That's the key. Real-world example, the competent professional who lost the room. You've seen this before. A smart professional. Well-trained. capable. Then pressure enters. Deadlines tighten. A meeting turns confrontational. An unexpected challenge appears. Suddenly, they speak faster. They over-explain. They interrupt. They justify. Nothing they say is wrong. But everything about how they say it signals loss of control. The room shifts. Trust drops. Authority leaks out. Not because of incompetence. Because of stress. Stress makes you look smaller than you are. Stress shrinks presence. It narrows posture. It speeds up movement. It sharpens tone. And humans are wired to read these signals instantly. They don't think. He's stressed. They feel. He's unstable. That feeling changes how they treat you. Less patience. Less trust. Less deference. That's how authority dies. Quietly. You have a choice, even when it doesn't feel like it. Here's where responsibility begins. Stress feels automatic. Reaction feels unavoidable. But that's an illusion. You have a choice. Not over whether stress appears, but over whether stress decides. That's the key. Why stress pushes you to rush. Stress activates urgency. Urgency creates speed. Speed kills authority. When you rush, you speak before thinking. You decide before seeing clearly. You act to relieve discomfort, not to build outcomes. Urgency is not power. Urgency is panic wearing a suit. Rushed decisions are authority killers. Under stress, people choose speed over accuracy. They want the feeling to stop. So they send the email too fast. Agree too quickly. Push back emotionally. Commit prematurely. And later, they clean up the mess. Authority doesn't survive cleanup mode. Leaders don't clean chaos. They prevent it. Emotional speech is not honest speech. People confuse emotion with authenticity. They say, "I'm just being honest." No. You're being unregulated. Under stress, emotional speech becomes sharp, becomes defensive, becomes excessive. And excess speech is weakness. That's the key. Why explaining yourself feels necessary, but isn't. Stress whispers lies. It tells you, say more so they understand. Explain so you're not misunderstood. Defend so you don't lose ground. But explaining under stress does the opposite. It signals insecurity. Calm silence signals certainty. You don't need their permission. Defensiveness is the fastest way to lose respect. Defensiveness is stress trying to protect ego. But ego protection costs authority. The moment you defend, you lower yourself to the accusation. You validate the pressure. You give control to the situation. Authority never defends itself emotionally. It stands. Stress turns leaders into reactors. Leadership disappears the moment reaction takes over. Reaction is fast, is emotional, is short-sighted. Response is slow, is deliberate, is strategic. Reaction feels relieving. Response builds power. That's the key. The nervous system is the real boss, if you let it be. Under stress, your nervous system doesn't care about outcomes. It cares about survival. Survival mode. Prioritizes relief. Avoids discomfort. Escapes tension. But leadership requires tolerance. Tolerance of silence. Tolerance of delay. Tolerance of discomfort. That's discipline. Authority lives in the pause. There is a moment under stress. A small one. A fraction of a second. Between stimulus and response. That pause is everything. Most people fill it with reaction. Calm people protect it. That's the key. What calm authority looks like. Calm authority. Speaks slower. Moves less. Chooses fewer words. Accepts silence. It doesn't chase control. It radiates it. Why people trust calm instinctively. Humans trust nervous system stability. They don't analyze it. They feel it. A calm presence tells the brain, this situation is safe. And safety creates trust. Trust creates authority. Stress makes you predictable. Under stress, patterns emerge. You always over-explain. Get sharp. Withdraw. Rush. Predictability under stress is dangerous. Because people learn how to push you. Calm breaks predictability. That's the key. Behavioral instruction, what to do when stress hits. When pressure rises. Slow your breathing. Inhale through the nose. Longer exhale. That signals control to your nervous system. Slow your speech. Fewer words. Longer pauses. Authority lives in restraint. Delay decisions. Stress wants speed. You choose timing. You have a choice. What to stop doing immediately. Stop. Explaining yourself emotionally. Filling silence out of discomfort. Reacting to urgency that isn't real. It's not about intelligence. It's about discipline. Stress tests identity, not skill. Pressure doesn't test what you know. It tests who you are practiced at being. If you've practiced calm, calm appears. If you've practiced reaction, reaction takes over. That's the key. Why authority must be trained before pressure. You cannot invent calm in the moment. You install it beforehand. Through awareness, repetition, discipline. That's training. Repetition anchor, say it again. When stress decides, authority disappears. You have a choice. Always. You now understand the cost. Stress isn't just uncomfortable. It's stealing your authority in real time. But stress isn't acting alone. There's something beneath it, something automatic, powerful, and rarely questioned. Your nervous system. And until you understand how it works, stress will always feel stronger than you. Now, let's go deeper. Take a breath. This chapter wasn't meant to impress you. It was meant to confront you. Everyone loses authority under stress sometimes. The difference is what you do next. Awareness is the first step. Discipline is the second. And you've already taken the first one. Stay with it. We're just getting started. This channel exists to sharpen your mindset, not to entertain your emotions. Chapter 2, Your nervous system is not neutral. Your biggest enemy under stress is not the situation. It's not the deadline. It's not the pressure. It's not the other person. It's your nervous system. Because the moment stress hits, your nervous system makes a decision before you do. And most people never realize. They were never in control to begin with. That's the key. The lie people believe about control. People think control is mental. They think, if I just think clearly, if I just stay positive, if I just remind myself to calm down. That's not how control works. Control is physiological first. Your body decides, long before your mind explains. And if your nervous system is untrained, it will override your best intentions every time. Say this clearly. An untrained nervous system will sabotage trained skills. You can be smart. You can be capable. You can be experienced. And still collapse under pressure. Not because you're weak. Because your nervous system defaults to survival. Not success. What the nervous system was designed for. Your nervous system was not designed for emails, meetings, deadlines, social judgment, modern pressure. It was designed for physical danger, immediate threat, survival or death. So when pressure shows up today, your body reacts as if something terrible is happening. Heart rate rises. Breathing shortens. Vision narrows. Thinking simplifies. That's survival mode. And survival mode is terrible for leadership. Why stress feels so convincing? Stress feels urgent because it is biological. Your body says, move now. Fix this now. Protect yourself now. And the mind follows. You don't calmly evaluate. You justify after. That's why reaction feels automatic. That's the key. You are not broken, you are untrained. This matters. Because shame weakens discipline. You are not broken. You are not defective. You are not incapable. You are simply running default settings. And defaults can be retrained. You have a choice. Why willpower fails under pressure? Willpower lives in the mind. Stress lives in the body. The body always wins. That's why telling yourself to calm down doesn't work. The nervous system doesn't respond to words. It responds to signals. Breath. Pace. Posture. Stillness. That's discipline. Stress shrinks the world. Under stress, time feels shorter. Options feel fewer. People feel like threats. That's not reality. That's biology. Stress collapses perception. And collapsed perception leads to bad decisions. Real-world example, the skilled person who freezes. You've seen this. Someone brilliant on paper. Prepared. Knowledgeable. Then pressure hits. They freeze. They rush. They miss obvious solutions. Later they say, I don't know what happened. What happened was simple. Their nervous system took over. Stress is not the enemy, unawareness is. Stress is neutral. It's information. But untrained nervous systems treat all pressure as danger. And danger shuts down higher thinking. That's why calm is not a personality trait. It's a trained state. Why you can't think your way out of stress. Thinking comes after regulation. Always. You must calm the body before you can command the mind. That's the key. Repetition anchor. Say it again. An untrained nervous system will sabotage trained skills. You have a choice. But only if you build capacity first. The illusion of, this is just how I am. People say, I'm just bad under stress. I've always been like this. That's not identity. That's conditioning. And conditioning can be changed. But only with repetition. Stress turns small problems into big ones. Because survival mode exaggerates threat. A comment feels like an attack. A delay feels like failure. A mistake feels catastrophic. And reaction follows exaggeration. Calm restores scale. The body sets the ceiling for performance. You cannot perform above your nervous system's capacity. You can only perform within it. That's why discipline is physical, not motivational. Sleep. Breathing. Pacing. Stillness. These are not wellness tips. They are performance tools. Behavioral instruction, how to retrain your nervous system. Start small. Daily. Slow breathing under mild stress. Train calm when it's easy. Pause before responding. Even 1 second builds capacity. Lower physical intensity. Relax jaw. Drop shoulders. Slow movement. That's training. What to stop doing immediately. Stop. Powering through stress. Ignoring physical signals. Believing urgency is always real. It's not about toughness. It's about regulation. Why calm feels unnatural at first? Because chaos is familiar. Your body knows reaction. Calm feels empty at first. Silence feels uncomfortable. That's growth. Discomfort without reaction is strength being built. Stress will always arrive faster than thought. You will not outthink stress. You must outtrain it. That's the key. The calm advantage. When your nervous system is regulated, you see more options. You speak less. You move slower. You choose better. Others feel it. They respond to it. That's authority. You don't need their permission. You don't need permission to pause. You don't need permission to slow down. You don't need permission to choose calm. Discipline is self-issued. Repetition anchor, again. An untrained nervous system will sabotage trained skills. Train the system. Protect the skill. Transition to Chapter 3. Now you understand the mechanism. Stress isn't random. Your reactions aren't mysterious. They're trained. Which means calm can be trained too. And that leads to a powerful truth most people miss. Calm is not who you are. It's what you practice. Now, let's make that undeniable. Pause here for a moment. Nothing you heard was meant to excuse you. It was meant to free you from self-blame. And redirect you toward responsibility. You can't control when stress appears. But you can control how prepared you are. And preparation starts with awareness. You're building that now. Stay with it. If you're still listening, you already belong here. Chapter 3, Calm is a skill, not a personality trait. Calm is not something you're born with. It's not luck. It's not temperament. It's not genetics. And believing it is has quietly cost people careers, relationships, and respect. Because when you tell yourself, "I'm just not calm under pressure," you give away responsibility. That's the key. Calm is not who you are. Calm is what you practice. The dangerous lie people tell themselves. People divide the world into two groups. Calm people. Emotional people. They say, "She's just naturally calm. He's always been intense. That's just my personality." No. That's conditioning. And conditioning can be changed. You have a choice. Why this lie is so comfortable? Calling calm a personality trait does something convenient. It removes responsibility. If calm is who you are, then losing control isn't your fault. It's just how you're wired. But that belief locks you in place. And stress loves people who don't train. What calm actually is. Calm is not absence of emotion. Calm is regulated emotion. Calm is feeling pressure without being hijacked by it. Calm is staying present while your body wants to escape. That's not personality. That's skill. Skills are built, not discovered. No one is born knowing how to drive, speak clearly under pressure, lead, stay silent when provoked. These are trained behaviors. Calm is no different. It's learned through repetition. That's the key. Why calm looks natural in others. You see someone calm under pressure and think, they're just built differently. You're only seeing the result. You're not seeing years of restraint, hundreds of small pauses, countless moments of choosing response over reaction. Skill always looks effortless to the untrained observer. Real-world example, the naturally calm leader. That leader you admire. The one who doesn't flinch in meetings. Who speaks slowly when things go wrong. Who never seems rushed. They weren't born that way. They trained it. By not reacting when it was uncomfortable. By holding silence when it felt awkward. By choosing restraint when emotion was loud. That's discipline. Reaction is familiar. Calm is unfamiliar. Reaction feels natural. Because it's rehearsed. You've practiced it for years. Every time you snapped. Every time you rushed. Every time you explained yourself. You trained reaction. Now calm feels foreign. That doesn't mean it's wrong. It means it's new. Why calm feels hard at first? Because calm removes stimulation. No drama. No release. No emotional outlet. Just presence. And presence is uncomfortable. For an untrained nervous system. That discomfort is growth. That's the key. Calm requires tolerance. Tolerance of silence, delay, uncertainty, being misunderstood temporarily. Most people react to escape discomfort. Calm people stay. You have a choice, again. Every moment under pressure offers two paths. Reaction. Familiar, relieving, destructive. Response, uncomfortable, disciplined, powerful. You have a choice. but only if you slow down enough to see it. It's not about weakness, it's about discipline. Say this clearly. It's not about being emotional. It's about being untrained. It's not about personality. It's about discipline. That's the key. Why intelligence doesn't create calm. Smart people react too. Often worse. Because intelligence justifies emotion faster. It builds arguments. It explains behavior. It defends reactions. Discipline shuts that down. Calm is behavioral, not conceptual. You don't think your way into calm. You behave your way into it. Behavior first. Identity later. Act calm before you feel calm. That's training. Behavioral instruction, how to practice calm daily. Train calm when it doesn't matter. Pause before replying. Even in small conversations. Lower your volume intentionally. Calm is quiet. Move slower than necessary. Speed signals threat. These micro-actions compound. Why waiting builds power. Waiting feels passive. It's not. Waiting is control. When you don't rush, you see more. Others reveal more. Pressure loses leverage. That's authority. You don't need their permission. You don't need permission to pause. Stay silent. Take time. Urgency is often emotional manipulation. Calm ignores it. Why people respect calm instinctively. Humans mirror nervous systems. Your calm regulates others. Your reaction destabilizes them. That's why calm leaders create calm environments. And reactive ones create chaos. Calm is built through repetition, not insight. Insight feels good. Repetition builds skill. You must choose calm. When you want to speak. When you want to react. When you want to explain. Over and over. That's discipline. Repetition anchor. Say it again. Calm is a skill. Not a personality trait. You have a choice. Every time. Why most people quit training calm? Because results aren't immediate. Because ego resists restraint. Because silence feels like losing. But silence is often winning quietly. That's the key. The long-term advantage of calm. Over time, calm people get trusted, get chosen, get promoted, get listened to. Not because they're louder. Because they're steadier. Stress tests the skill you've practiced. Pressure doesn't ask who you want to be. It reveals who you've trained yourself to be. Train calm. And calm shows up. What to stop doing immediately. Stop saying, "That's just how I am." Replace it with, "That's what I've practiced." And then practice something else. You are not late, you are early. Most people never learn this. They react their whole lives. And call it personality. You're learning discipline. That puts you ahead. Repetition anchor, final. Calm is a skill. Not a personality trait. Train the skill. Transition to Chapter 4. Now you know calm can be trained. But training requires understanding the system you're training. Because the real driver of reaction is not your thoughts. It's your body. And until you understand that system, calm will always feel fragile. Now, we go deeper. Take a moment here. If this chapter challenged your self-image, that's a good sign. Growth always disrupts identity first. You are not losing who you are. You are upgrading how you operate. And that starts with practice. Stay with it. You're building something real now. This is the work most people avoid. If you're still here, you're doing it. Chapter 4, Your nervous system is running your life. You like to believe you're in control. That you decide. That you choose. That you think things through. But under pressure, that belief collapses. Because when stress hits, your nervous system takes the wheel. And most people don't even realize. They've handed it the keys. That's the key. The silent driver behind your decisions. Your nervous system is always active. It's scanning. It's evaluating. It's predicting threat. Long before you form a thought, your body has already decided whether something feels safe or dangerous. And whatever it decides, your behavior follows. Not logically. Automatically. Why this is hard to accept. People want to believe they're rational. They want to believe they act from values. From intention. From intelligence. But stress exposes the truth. Under pressure, you don't rise to your ideals. You fall to your conditioning. That's the key. Your nervous system does not care about your goals. It does not care about your plans, your ambitions, your long-term vision. It cares about immediate safety. So when pressure appears, it asks, is this dangerous? Can we escape? How do we end discomfort now? And if you haven't trained it, it answers those questions for you. Fight, flight, freeze, running your life daily. You don't need a battlefield for survival responses to activate. Modern pressure triggers them constantly. Fight. Snapping. Arguing. Defensiveness. Flight. Avoiding. Withdrawing. Procrastinating. Freeze. Overthinking. Shutting down. Doing nothing. These are not personality flaws. They are nervous system patterns. Say this clearly. An untrained nervous system will sabotage trained skills. You can know exactly what to do, and still do the opposite. Because knowledge does not override biology. Training does. Why stress feels like you? Stress responses feel personal. They feel like your thoughts, your emotions, your identity. But they are reflexes. Learned reflexes. And reflexes can be retrained. You have a choice. How the nervous system hijacks authority. When your nervous system is dysregulated, your voice tightens. Your breathing shortens. Your movements speed up. Others feel it immediately. They don't think. He's stressed. They feel. He's unstable. Authority disappears. Not because you lost competence. Because you lost regulation. Why calm people seem powerful without trying? Calm people aren't forcing control. Their nervous system is regulated. So their presence communicates. There is no emergency. And that signal spreads. People relax. Conversations slow. Decisions improve. That's influence. The cost of living in survival mode. Living in constant low-level stress does damage. It makes you reactive, impatient, emotionally tired. You start mistaking urgency for importance. You confuse activity with progress. And slowly, your life becomes a series of reactions. Real-world example, the burned-out high performer. You've seen this person. Always busy. Always stressed. Always handling things. But never calm. Eventually, their judgment slips. Their relationships strain. Their energy collapses. Not from lack of effort. From chronic nervous system overload. Why you can't mindset your way out. Positive thinking doesn't regulate the body. Affirmations don't slow breathing. Motivation doesn't lower cortisol. The nervous system responds to signals, not slogans. That's the key. The body leads. The mind follows. Always. If your body is calm, your mind clears. If your body is tense, your thoughts race. So discipline starts physical. Behavioral instruction, how to regain control in real time. When you feel stress rising, exhale longer than you inhale. This tells your body there is no emergency. Lower your physical intensity. Sit back. Relax shoulders. Slow gestures. Delay speech. Silence breaks the stress loop. This is not weakness. This is command. Why silence regulates power. Talking keeps stress alive. Silence lets it pass. Most people speak to discharge anxiety. Calm people wait for clarity. You don't need their permission. The addiction to stress. Stress can feel productive. It creates motion. It creates urgency. It creates importance. But it destroys precision. Calm creates accuracy. That's the key. Why calm feels boring to the untrained? Because chaos stimulates. Calm doesn't entertain. It stabilizes. And stability is where power compounds. Your nervous system learns through repetition. Every time you react, you reinforce the pattern. Every time you pause, you weaken it. Training is happening either way. You have a choice. What to stop doing immediately. Stop treating stress as normal. Ignoring physical tension. Rewarding urgency. It's not about toughness. It's about discipline. Why regulation creates freedom. When your nervous system is regulated, you choose instead of react. You listen instead of interrupt. You lead instead of defend. That's freedom. Repetition anchor. Say it again. An untrained nervous system will sabotage trained skills. Train the system. Protect your future. Pressure is the teacher, if you let it be. Stress shows you where training is missing. It's feedback. Not punishment. Every trigger points to a practice opportunity. Why this changes everything. Once you see this, you stop blaming people. You stop blaming circumstances. You start training regulation. That's maturity. Transition to Chapter 5. Now you understand who's been in control. Not stress. Not people. Your nervous system. But awareness is not enough. Because under pressure, most people make one fatal mistake. They start explaining themselves. And that mistake costs them power. Next, we eliminate it. Pause for a moment. This chapter wasn't about judging you. It was about showing you the machinery behind your reactions. Nothing here makes you weak. It makes you responsible. And responsibility is where control begins. Stay with it. You're learning how to take your life back. Stay with the process. This part matters. Chapter 5, Stop explaining yourself under stress. The moment you start explaining yourself under stress, you've already lost ground. Not because you're wrong. Not because you lack logic. Not because you lack evidence. But because explanation under pressure is not clarity. It's self-defense. And self-defense signals weakness. That's the key. Why stress pushes you to explain. Stress hates uncertainty. It wants resolution. It wants relief. It wants the discomfort to end. So it whispers. Say more. Clarify. Defend yourself. Make them understand. And most people obey instantly. They start talking. And talking. And talking. Until authority evaporates. The lie about explanation. People believe explanation equals intelligence. They think, if I explain clearly, I'll regain control. But under stress, explanation does the opposite. It lowers status. It signals insecurity. It invites challenge. Because confident authority doesn't rush to justify itself. That's the key. Explanation versus response. Let's be precise. Explanation is emotional. Response is deliberate. Explanation is driven by discomfort. Response is driven by intention. Explanation wants approval. Response doesn't need it. You don't need their permission. Why calm people say less under pressure? Calm people understand something instinctively. Words are leverage. And leverage weakens when you overuse it. So when pressure rises, they reduce words. They increase pauses. They allow silence. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is strength. Real-world example, the over-explaining professional. You've seen this. A capable person in a meeting. They're questioned. Pressure rises. Suddenly they explain every detail. Defend every decision. Anticipate every objection. They think they're being thorough. What the room feels is uncertainty. Trust drops. Authority fades. Not because they were wrong. Because they were stressed. Why over-explanation feels necessary? Because silence feels dangerous. To an untrained nervous system, silence creates uncertainty. And stress hates uncertainty. So you fill the space. You speak to escape tension. But escaping tension costs power. That's the key. Authority does not rush to be understood. Read that again. Authority does not rush to be understood. It allows misunderstanding temporarily. Because it trusts outcomes. Reactive people explain. Calm people let results speak. You are not on trial. Stress makes everything feel like judgment. A question feels like an accusation. A pause feels like rejection. A challenge feels like threat. So you defend. But most situations are not trials. They're tests of composure. The more you explain, the more you invite debate. Explanation opens doors. Every sentence creates another angle. Another objection. Another question. Another challenge. Silence closes doors. That's the key. Why explaining yourself lowers status. High-status behavior assumes legitimacy. Low-status behavior tries to prove it. When you explain emotionally, you signal, I need you to accept this. Authority assumes acceptance. You don't need their permission. Stress turns explanations into apologies. Even when you don't say, sorry. Your tone does. Your pace does. Your body does. And people feel it. What calm responses sound like? Calm responses are short. Measured. Neutral. Incomplete. They don't answer everything. They answer enough. Enough is power. Behavioral instruction, what to do instead of explaining. When pressure hits, answer only what was asked. Nothing more. Pause before speaking. Let the question sit. Lower your tone. Calm communicates confidence. That's discipline. Why short answers feel risky, but aren't. Short answers feel risky because they remove control from ego. Ego wants certainty. Discipline tolerates uncertainty. And tolerance builds authority. You have a choice, again. Every stressful interaction asks, will you explain? Or will you stand? Will you react? Or will you respond? You have a choice. Why silence often wins the argument. Silence forces others to reveal themselves. They fill the gap. They expose urgency. They overplay their hand. Calm watches. The discipline of not clarifying everything. You don't need to. Correct every misunderstanding. Answer every concern. Win every moment. You need to protect composure. That's the key. Stress makes you overshare. Under pressure, people reveal too much. Justify too deeply. Talk too fast. Information without restraint is not power. It's leakage. Why leaders are brief under fire. Leaders know. Fewer words travel farther. Calm tone carries authority. Silence stabilizes the room. They don't fill space. They hold it. What to stop doing immediately. Stop explaining your emotions. Justifying your decisions emotionally. Talking to reduce anxiety. It's not about being cold. It's about being disciplined. Repetition anchor. Say it clearly. Explanation under stress is self-defense. Response under stress is authority. That's the key. Why this feels uncomfortable at first. Because explanation has been your safety net. Silence feels like exposure. But exposure builds strength. When paired with discipline, authority is felt, not explained. People don't remember explanations. They remember presence. They remember steadiness. They remember how you made them feel. When things were difficult. The long-term effect of saying less. Over time, when you stop explaining, people listen more carefully. Questions become fewer. Respect increases. Not because you demanded it, because you earned it. Repetition anchor, final. You don't need their permission. Say less. Stand still. Let pressure pass. Now you've removed one of the biggest leaks of power. You're not rushing. You're not explaining. You're not defending. But to maintain this under real pressure, you need one more skill. Detachment. Because attachment is what makes stress personal. And personal stress is uncontrollable stress. Next, we harden that boundary. Pause here. If this chapter made you uncomfortable, that's a good sign. It means you've identified a habit that once felt protective, but was costing you authority. You're not becoming distant. You're becoming disciplined. And discipline always feels unfamiliar before it feels natural. Stay with it. Chapter 6, Detachment is how you stay unshakable. If everything feels personal, everything will shake you. Every comment, every delay, every disagreement, every look. Stress becomes unbearable. Not because pressure is high, but because attachment is high. That's the key. Detachment is not coldness. Detachment is stability. And without it, calm collapses. What detachment really means, and what it doesn't. Detachment does not mean you don't care. It does not mean you disengage. It does not mean you become distant or indifferent. Detachment means this. You stop tying your identity to outcomes you cannot fully control. That's it. And that changes everything. Why attachment creates fragility. When you are attached, criticism feels like an attack. Failure feels like a verdict. Disagreement feels like disrespect. Because your nervous system hears, this threatens who I am. So it reacts. That's not strength. That's exposure. Say this clearly. It's not about confidence. It's about detachment. It's not about toughness. It's about discipline. That's the key. Why stress always finds attachment. Stress doesn't attack randomly. It goes straight for what you're attached to. Your image. Your reputation. Your need to be right. Your need to be liked. Because attachment is leverage. And stress uses leverage. Real-world example, the talented person who can't handle feedback. You've seen this. Capable. Driven. Talented. But one piece of feedback. And they spiral. They argue. They explain. They shut down. Not because feedback was harsh. Because identity was attached. Detachment is how you protect authority. Authority disappears when emotions leak. Emotions leak when identity feels threatened. Detachment removes the threat. You don't react because nothing essential is at risk. That's the key. Why calm people seem unbothered? They're not numb. They're detached. They don't fuse their worth to the moment. So pressure passes through them. Instead of controlling them. Attachment makes stress personal. Stress feels overwhelming. When everything is about you. Your value. Your intelligence. Your future. Detachment zooms out. It turns pressure into data. Data can be handled. You have a choice, again. Every stressful moment asks, will you take this personally? Or will you observe it? You have a choice. But only if you remember. You are not the situation. Why detachment feels wrong at first? Because ego confuses attachment with care. It says, if I don't react, I don't care. That's false. Real care is controlled. Real care is calm. Attachment speeds you up. When attached, you rush to respond. You rush to correct. You rush to defend. Speed increases mistakes. Detachment slows time. That's power. Why detachment is a skill, not a mindset. You don't decide to be detached once. You practice it repeatedly. By not reacting immediately. Not explaining emotionally. Not chasing validation. That's discipline. Behavioral instruction, how to practice detachment daily. Start small. Name the situation, not yourself. This is pressure. Not, I'm failing. Separate outcome from identity. Results are events. Not verdicts. Delay emotional responses. Time weakens attachment. That's training. Why silence supports detachment? Silence gives space. Space breaks fusion. When you don't speak immediately, you remember you're not obligated. You don't need their permission. Attachment makes you predictable. If people know what you're attached to, they know how to shake you. Approval. Praise. Recognition. Detachment removes handles. Why detachment creates respect? People trust those who aren't desperate. Desperation leaks through tone, posture, pace. Detachment removes desperation. Calm follows. Stress without detachment is chaos. Pressure plus attachment equals reaction. Pressure plus detachment equals choice. Choice is control. That's the key. Why you can't be unshakable without detachment. You can't regulate everything. People will disagree. Plans will fail. Pressure will rise. If your stability depends on outcomes, you will always be vulnerable. Detachment is insurance. What detachment sounds like internally? Not, they're disrespecting me. But, this is information. Not, I can't let this happen. But, I can choose how I respond. That shift is everything. What to stop doing immediately. Stop. Taking tone personally. Interpreting stress as judgment. Defending your identity. It's not about ego. It's about discipline. Repetition anchor. Say it clearly. Detachment is how you stay unshakable. Not avoidance. Not indifference. Detachment. Why detachment strengthens relationships. Reactive people escalate. Detached people stabilize. People feel safer around stability. Safety builds trust. Trust builds influence. Pressure tests attachment first. Before stress tests skill. It tests attachment. Remove attachment. And stress loses leverage. That's the key. The long-term effect of detachment. Over time, you react less. You observe more. You decide better. Others notice. They adjust. They respect. You are not losing passion. You're losing fragility. Passion without discipline is volatility. Passion with detachment is power. Repetition anchor, final. It's not about caring less. It's about caring without being controlled. That's detachment. Now you're no longer explaining. You're no longer taking everything personally. You're steady. But steadiness does more than protect you. It gives you control over something critical. The pace. Because calm people don't just survive pressure. They control the tempo of it. And tempo decides outcomes. Next, we take that advantage. Pause here. Detachment doesn't make you cold. It makes you free. Free from emotional hijacking. Free from urgency. Free to choose. This may feel unfamiliar. That's growth. Stay with it. You're building a kind of strength that doesn't collapse when pressure arrives. What you repeat, you become. Most people stop before this point. You didn't. Chapter 7, Calm people control the pace. The fastest person in the room is rarely the one in control. They rush. They interrupt. They react. And while they're moving fast, someone calmer is deciding the outcome. That's the key. Speed feels powerful. But pace is power. Why pace decides everything. Every situation has a rhythm. Conversations. Negotiations. Conflicts. Crises. Whoever controls the pace controls the direction. Reactive people let pressure set the tempo. Calm people choose it. Stress always speeds you up. Stress compresses time. It creates urgency where none exists. It turns moments into emergencies. Your body tightens. Your speech accelerates. Your decisions narrow. That's not efficiency. That's loss of control. Say this clearly. It's not about speed. It's about discipline. That's the key. Why fast feels safe, but isn't. Speed feels like action. Action feels like control. But under pressure, speed is often avoidance. Avoidance of discomfort. Avoidance of silence. Avoidance of uncertainty. Calm tolerates uncertainty. Real-world example, the meeting that gets hijacked. You've seen this. One stressed person dominates the room. They talk fast. They jump topics. They demand immediate answers. The room follows their pace. Clarity disappears. Authority shifts to chaos. How calm people reverse this? They slow down. They pause before responding. They speak last. They don't rush decisions. And slowly, the room sinks to them. That's influence. Why pace is felt before it's understood. People don't consciously track pace. They feel it. Fast pace equals instability. Slow pace equals confidence. Your nervous system broadcasts pace constantly. Others adjust automatically. You have a choice, again. When pressure increases, will you match the speed? Or set the speed? You have a choice. Why calm feels like control to others? Because calm removes urgency. And urgency is what forces mistakes. When you're calm, people wait. Conversations deepen. Decisions improve. That's the key. The hidden advantage of slowing down. Slowing down creates space. Space to think. Space to observe. Space to choose. Reactive people don't see options. Calm people do. Pace reveals status. High-status behavior is unhurried. Low-status behavior rushes to respond. Not because of importance. Because of insecurity. You don't need their permission. Why silence controls tempo? Silence resets pace. It breaks momentum. It forces others to slow down. Or expose their urgency. That's power without effort. Behavioral instruction, how to control pace under pressure. When stress hits, slow your breathing deliberately. Longer exhales. Reduce your speech speed by half. Fewer words. Clear pauses. Delayed decisions, let's revisit this shortly. That's discipline in action. Why delays create authority? People equate immediacy with importance. But calm leaders delay when necessary. Delay signals confidence. Confidence builds trust. Stress wants immediate resolution. Stress says, fix it now. Answer now. Decide now. Calm says, not yet. That's the key. Why urgency is contagious. One stressed person can infect a room. Their pace spreads. So does calm. But calm only spreads when someone is disciplined enough to hold it. Controlling pace in conflict. In conflict, pace decides escalation. Fast responses fuel emotion. Slow responses diffuse it. You don't need to win fast. You need to win clean. Why calm people rarely get interrupted? Because they don't compete for space. They occupy it. They pause. And people wait. What to stop doing immediately? Stop. Rushing to respond. Filling every pause. Treating urgency as importance. It's not about laziness. It's about control. Repetition anchor. Say it again. Calm people control the pace. Reactive people follow it. That's the key. Why this makes you hard to manipulate. Manipulation requires speed. Pressure. Deadlines. Emotional urgency. When you slow the pace, manipulation collapses. The long-term effect of pace control. Over time, people bring you fewer emergencies. Conversations become clearer. Decisions improve. Because you've trained others to match your tempo. Pace is leadership without titles. You don't need authority to control pace. You need composure. Composure creates gravity. Pressure exposes who sets the tempo. When stress rises, some accelerate. Some panic. Some steady the room. Be the one who steadies. Repetition anchor, final. It's not about being slow. It's about being deliberate. That's the key. You've learned how to slow things down. You're not reacting. You're not rushing. You're setting tempo. But there is one tool that amplifies calm more than any other. Silence. Because silence doesn't just slow pace. It shifts power. Next, we sharpen it. If slowing down feels uncomfortable, that's because your nervous system was trained to equate speed with safety. You're retraining it now. This is not about doing less. It's about choosing better. You're learning how to lead pressure instead of being dragged by it. Results don't need permission. They speak for themselves. Chapter 8: Silence is a strategic weapon. Most people are afraid of silence. They rush to fill it. They talk to escape it. They explain to kill it. And in doing so, they give away power. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is control. That's the key. Why silence feels threatening. Silence removes feedback. No approval. No reassurance. No validation. For an untrained nervous system, that feels dangerous. So it pushes you to speak. To clarify. To justify. To soothe yourself with sound. But sound is not strength. Silence reveals who is unstable. When silence enters a room, watch carefully. The anxious talk. The insecure over-explain. The reactive interrupt. Calm people don't rush. They wait. And waiting is dominance. Say this clearly. It's not about being quiet. It's about being unmoved. That's the key. Why silence disrupts pressure. Pressure feeds on reaction. It escalates when it gets engagement. Silence starves it. When you don't react immediately, urgency weakens. Emotion deflates. Power shifts. Silence breaks momentum. Real-world example, the negotiation that turns. In negotiations, the first person to break silence usually loses leverage. Why? Because silence communicates. I'm not rushed. I'm not desperate. I can wait. And waiting forces the other side to reveal their position. Why silence is misunderstood as weakness. Weak people are silent because they're afraid. Strong people are silent because they're disciplined. The difference is internal. One is frozen. The other is deliberate. Silence is a nervous system skill. Silence isn't about your mouth. It's about your body. Can you stay regulated? When nothing is happening, can you tolerate uncertainty without filling the space? That's training. You have a choice, again. When tension rises, will you speak to relieve discomfort? Or stay silent to maintain control? You have a choice. Why silence increases authority instantly? Authority assumes space. It doesn't chase it. When you pause before responding, people listen harder. Words carry more weight. Attention sharpens. Less input. More impact. Stress makes you verbose. Under stress, you talk faster. You explain more. You repeat yourself. This is not clarity. It's leakage. Silence seals leaks. Why silence forces others to slow down? Silence disrupts pace. It interrupts emotional momentum. Others either slow down, expose urgency, reveal insecurity. All outcomes favor the calm. Behavioral instruction: how to use silence under pressure. Practice this deliberately. After a question, pause for 2 full breaths. Even if you know the answer. End statements early. Don't overfinish thoughts. Let silence sit after decisions. No justifying. That's discipline. Why silence feels uncomfortable at first. Because your identity is used to performing. Talking feels like doing. Silence feels like risk. But risk builds strength. When handled intentionally. Silence is how you avoid emotional traps. Emotional traps rely on reaction, provocation, urgency, insults disguised as questions. Silence refuses the trap. That's the key. Why calm people are hard to manipulate. Manipulation needs speed and emotion. Silence removes both. When you don't respond immediately, manipulation loses grip. Silence turns observation into power. When you're quiet, you see more. Tone, body language, intent. Talkers reveal themselves. Observers decide. The discipline of saying nothing. You don't need to. Win every exchange. Correct every error. Prove every point. Silence protects energy. Energy compounds. Why silence builds psychological weight. People assign meaning to silence. They lean in. They speculate. They adjust. Silence creates gravity. That's influence. Stress wants noise. Stress wants quick answers. Emotional discharge. Resolution now. Silence denies stress its fuel. What silence communicates without words? It says, I'm not rushed. I'm not threatened. I'm thinking. Those signals calm rooms. Real-world example. Leadership under fire. Watch leaders during crises. The strong ones speak less. Pause longer. Choose words carefully. The weak ones talk constantly. Noise replaces clarity. Why silence makes your words stronger? When you speak less, every word carries more weight. People remember. They quote you. They trust you. What to stop doing immediately? Stop. Filling pauses. Nervous talking. Explaining after decisions. It's not about arrogance. It's about discipline. Repetition anchor. Say it clearly. Silence is not absence. Silence is leverage. That's the key. Silence protects your nervous system. Talking keeps stress circulating. Silence lets it settle. Your body regulates faster. When you don't keep stimulating it. Why silence is rare and valuable. Most people can't tolerate it. That makes it powerful. Scarcity creates value. Silence is how you take space without forcing it. You don't need to dominate. You don't need to interrupt. Silence creates room naturally. When not to use silence. Silence is not avoidance. It's not withdrawal. It's intentional restraint. You speak when it matters. That's the difference. The long-term effect of strategic silence. Over time, people bring you fewer emotional problems. Conversations become more intentional. Your presence feels stabilizing. Because you don't feed chaos. Repetition anchor, final. It's not about being quiet. It's about being undisturbed. That's silence as strategy. Now you've learned to slow the pace. Detach emotionally. Use silence intentionally. But there's one final vulnerability. Stress always attacks your self-worth. Because if your worth can be touched, you can be controlled. Next, we lock it down. Silence may feel unnatural right now. That's because you were trained to prove, perform, and explain. You're unlearning that. This isn't withdrawal. It's refinement. You're building a kind of power that doesn't announce itself, but is always felt. Chapter 9, Self-Worth That Can't Be Touched. If your self-worth can be touched, you can be controlled. By opinions. By pressure. By rejection. By silence. And stress knows this. Stress doesn't attack your skills first. It attacks your worth. That's the key. Why stress always targets self-worth. Stress is intelligent. It looks for leverage. And the easiest leverage is your need to feel valued, respected, or approved. So it whispers. What if they think less of you? What if you fail? What if you're not enough? And if your worth is conditional? You react. Conditional self-worth is a liability. Most people's worth depends on results, recognition, performance, approval. Remove any of these, and their stability collapses. That's not confidence. That's dependency. Say this clearly. It's not about ego. It's about discipline. That's the key. Why emotional reactions are really worth reactions. Anger often says, I feel disrespected. Defensiveness says, I feel exposed. Over-explaining says, I need you to understand my value. These aren't logic problems. They're worth problems. Real-world example, the high achiever who crumbles. You've seen this. Highly capable. Highly driven. But one failure. And they spiral. They don't just lose the task. They lose themselves. Because their worth was fused to performance. Why untouchable self-worth creates calm. When your worth is stable, criticism becomes information. Failure becomes feedback. Pressure becomes manageable. Nothing essential is at risk. That's calm. You have a choice, again. Every stressful moment asks, will you protect your image? Or your stability? You have a choice. Why people chase validation under stress. Validation soothes insecurity temporarily. But it creates addiction. The more you need it, the more power you give away. You don't need their permission. Self-worth is not confidence. Confidence fluctuates. Self-worth doesn't. Confidence depends on context. Self-worth is internal. That's the key. Why praise can be as dangerous as criticism. If criticism can shake you, praise can hook you. Both create dependency. Both make your worth external. Detachment applies here too. Behavioral instruction. How to build untouchable self-worth. Start with this. Separate who you are from what you do. Performance is output, not identity. Stop self-evaluating in moments of stress. Stress distorts perception. Anchor worth to discipline, not outcome. Did you act with control? That's training. Why discipline is the only stable anchor. Outcomes fluctuate. Opinions change. Circumstances shift. Discipline remains. You can always choose discipline. That's the key. Stress wants you to prove yourself. Stress says, show them. Defend it. Explain why you matter. Calm says, I already know. That difference is everything. Why calm people don't chase respect? They don't need to. They behave in ways that generate it naturally. Respect follows stability. Self-worth and silence. Silence is impossible when your worth is fragile, because silence feels like judgment. But when worth is secure, silence feels neutral. That's freedom. Why comparison destroys self-worth? Comparison externalizes value. Someone is always ahead. Someone is always behind. Calm people don't compare. They measure themselves against discipline. Repetition anchor. Say it clearly. If your self-worth can be touched, you can be controlled. That's the key. Why stress makes you over-identify. Under pressure, people say, I am failing. I am losing. I am not enough. Language matters. You are experiencing pressure. You are not pressure. The discipline of neutral self-talk. Replace I'm not good enough with this is difficult. Remove identity from difficulty. That creates space. Why untouchable self-worth slows everything down. When worth isn't threatened, you don't rush. You don't panic. You don't defend. You choose. Choice is control. Why this makes you hard to manipulate. Manipulation attacks worth. Shame. Guilt. Urgency. If worth is stable, manipulation fails. What to stop doing immediately. Stop tying worth to praise. Letting criticism define you. Measuring value by outcomes. It's not about arrogance. It's about discipline. Why humility and untouchable worth coexist. Untouchable worth doesn't mean superiority. It means neutrality. You don't inflate. You don't collapse. You remain steady. Stress without worth attachment loses power. Stress needs stakes. If your worth isn't on the line, stress weakens. That's the key. Long-term effect of untouchable self-worth. Over time, you react less. You recover faster. You stay calm longer. Others feel it. They trust it. Why this is the core of emotional control. Without stable worth, detachment fails. Silence feels unsafe. Pace control collapses. Self-worth is the foundation. Repetition anchor, final. It's not about believing you're special. It's about knowing your worth. Doesn't fluctuate. That's untouchable. Now your worth is no longer exposed. You're not reacting. You're not explaining. You're not rushing. You're not defending your value. There's only one layer left. The layer that turns all of this into a permanent advantage. Discipline. Because discipline is what holds calm when motivation fades. Next, we finalize it. If this chapter hit deep, that's because it touched the root. You're not losing ambition. You're removing fragility. This is how calm becomes permanent. You're almost at the end, and at the beginning, of a different way of living under pressure. You don't need to explain yourself. You just need to stay consistent. Chapter 10, Discipline is the final advantage. Motivation will leave you. Confidence will fluctuate. Calm will be tested. But discipline stays. When pressure rises, when emotions surge, when everything inside you wants to react, discipline is what remains. When everything else collapses. That's the key. Why discipline is the final layer. You've learned how to regulate stress, detach emotionally, control pace, use silence, protect your self-worth. But none of that survives without discipline. Because pressure doesn't ask how much you know. It asks what you do consistently. Discipline is not intensity. Let's be clear. Discipline is not hype. It's not aggression. It's not force. Discipline is quiet. It's boring. It's repetitive. It's unglamorous. And that's why it works. Say this clearly. It's not about talent. It's not about personality. It's about discipline. That's the key. Why pressure exposes discipline first. Under pressure, motivation disappears. Emotions spike. Old habits resurface. Only discipline remains. That's why pressure feels unfair. It strips away everything optional. Real-world example, the consistent professional. You've seen this person. Not the loudest. Not the most charismatic. Not the most emotional. But steady. They don't panic. They don't rush. They don't explain. They execute. And over time, they replace everyone else. Discipline is the ability to delay reaction. At its core, discipline is simple. You pause. When reaction feels urgent. You choose. When emotion wants control. You hold structure. When chaos invites collapse. That's power. Why discipline feels heavy at first. Because your nervous system is used to freedom without structure. Discipline feels restrictive. But structure creates freedom. Without discipline, you're a slave to impulse. You have a choice, again. Every stressful moment asks, will emotion decide? Or will discipline decide? You have a choice. But only if discipline is trained. Discipline versus motivation. Motivation asks, do I feel like it? Discipline asks, what's required? Motivation negotiates. Discipline executes. That's the difference. Why calm without discipline fails? Calm can disappear. Silence can break. Detachment can slip. Discipline restores them. Discipline is the spine, holding calm upright. Behavioral instruction, what discipline looks like under pressure. Discipline means breathing before speaking, Pausing before deciding. Choosing restraint over release. Holding posture when emotions surge. No audience. No praise. Just control. Why discipline is invisible, but felt. People don't notice discipline immediately. They feel it over time. They feel consistency, reliability, stability. That's trust. Stress wants you to abandon discipline. Stress says, just react this once. Just explain this time. Just rush this moment. That's how discipline erodes. One exception at a time. Repetition anchor. Say it clearly. Discipline is choosing control. Even when no one is watching. That's the key. Why discipline creates identity. You don't become disciplined by believing. You become disciplined by acting. The same way repeatedly. Identity follows behavior. Not the other way around. Discipline protects your nervous system. Structure calms the body. Predictable actions. Reduce internal chaos. Discipline is regulation. On autopilot. Why undisciplined calm is temporary. Anyone can be calm on a good day. Discipline keeps you calm. On bad days. That's the difference. Between control and luck. What discipline is not. Discipline is not harshness, self-punishment, emotional suppression. It's direction. You guide yourself. Instead of fighting yourself. Why discipline creates long-term advantage. Others rely on mood, energy, inspiration. You rely on systems. Systems don't panic. Stress tests habits, not intentions. Intentions disappear under pressure. Habits remain. Discipline builds habits that survive stress. Behavioral instruction, build discipline daily. Do this. Decide your response standards in advance. No decisions under pressure. Practice calm in small moments. Training happens daily. Remove emotional negotiation. Do what's required. That's training. Why discipline feels lonely? Because most people avoid it. Discipline separates you quietly. You stop relating through chaos. You relate through structure. Repetition anchor. Say it again. Discipline is the final advantage. Everything else depends on it. Why discipline is respect without noise. You don't demand respect. You don't chase authority. You behave predictably under pressure. Respect follows. Stress without discipline ends careers. Not from incompetence. From inconsistency. One emotional moment undoes years of work. Discipline prevents that. Why discipline is the ultimate freedom. Without discipline, emotions control you. Pressure dictates behavior. Others set your pace. With discipline, you choose. You pause. You decide. That's freedom. What to stop doing immediately. Stop negotiating with emotions. Waiting to feel ready. Trusting motivation. It's not about force. It's about structure. Why discipline compounds over time. One calm response leads to another. One restrained moment builds trust. Trust builds opportunity. Opportunity builds position. Quietly. The final repetition anchor. Say it slowly. When pressure rises, discipline decides. That's the key. Why this chapter ends the book. Because nothing comes after discipline. It is the foundation. Without it, everything collapses. With it, everything holds. Transition to closing. You've learned how to stay calm, regulate stress, protect your worth, use silence, control pace. Now it's time to lock it in. Because knowledge without execution changes nothing. Next comes responsibility. This chapter wasn't meant to excite you. It was meant to ground you. Discipline doesn't shout. It stays. If you build it, calm becomes permanent. And when pressure comes, and it will, you won't rise emotionally. You'll stand structurally. That's the advantage. And it's yours to keep. Untouchable doesn't mean emotionless. It means unshaken. This is where it ends. Not with motivation. Not with excitement. Not with noise. But with responsibility. Because now you know the truth most people never face. Pressure is not the problem. Stress is not the enemy. Other people are not the threat. Lack of control is. Every time pressure enters your life, it asks you one question. Will you react? Or will you respond? Will emotion take the wheel? Or will discipline decide? You already know the answer. You've seen what happens when stress runs the show. You've seen careers stall. You've seen relationships fracture. You've seen potential wasted, not from lack of talent, but lack of composure. Calm people don't force control. They don't demand respect. They don't explain themselves into relevance. They move slower. They speak less. They decide deliberately. And because of that, they last. This audiobook wasn't meant to inspire you. It was meant to condition you. To train your nervous system. To harden your standards. To make calm your default, not your exception. From this moment forward, pressure will still come. Deadlines. Conflict. Uncertainty. Silence. But now, pressure no longer decides for you. You pause. You breathe. You choose. Because reaction is weakness. And response is power. Remember this. The world doesn't reward those who feel the most. It rewards those who can stay steady while others lose themselves. That's not cruelty. That's reality. So when the next moment hits, and it will, slow down. Let others rush. You don't need their permission. You stay composed. Because calm is no longer just a skill. It's your advantage. If this audiobook helped you, we invite you to leave a comment and share what stood out to you. We're genuinely glad you spent this time here. Training focus, discipline, and composure. If you'd like to support this work, please like and subscribe so you don't miss the next audiobooks coming soon. Thank you for listening. Move quietly. Stay disciplined.